I'm Dave Greenwood, and this is Overcoming Distractions. If you are an adult with ADHD, a busy professional, an entrepreneur, a high achiever, or you just need some strategies to navigate your adult ADHD, you are in the right place. Who am I? I'm an entrepreneur with ADHD and the author of 2 books, Overcoming Distractions and Overcoming Burnout. I've worked with hundreds of people just like you, and together we navigate the ups and downs of adult ADHD. Want more info on working with me? Hit overcomingdistractions.com. Ready? Let's get to today's podcast. All right, everybody, welcome back to Overcoming Distractions, and this is the place for busy adults with ADHD. Maybe you have that demanding career. Maybe you just got diagnosed with ADHD as an adult. Maybe you are figuring out that you are working in a chaotic work environment, whether that is in a organization, a company, maybe it could be your own doing as a small business owner or entrepreneur. We don't judge here. We just try to problem solve. And that's what you're going to get here on Overcoming Distractions. So let's dig into this. Today it's me, and being an adult with ADHD, having that demanding career, family responsibilities, and all the other things that come along with just being an adult with ADHD, that can make life complex for us, right? And I'm sure you agree. Lots of times life is cool, but sometimes we end up in these periods of time where things we just don't feel like they're working in our favor, or we could do better, or we could improve our systems, or what have you. Life happens, life events happen, and then our ADHD sometimes gets the best of us, right? So, at times I think it becomes difficult to manage. We feel exhausted. We feel like we're getting nowhere. Maybe there's some uncertainty in our lives, which I don't think we do well with. And then we actually can feel burned out because maybe this has gone on way too long. And we've kind of figured out that we need to correct course. And by the way, if you're feeling that way, we do have episodes where we talk about those warning signs of burnout. So just kind of scroll back after this if you feel like you're in that category of feeling burned out, and try and get a little more knowledge about burnout. But I've worked with many of you one-on-one in recent years, and I've realized that there are a handful of overarching themes that just kind of keep coming up over and over again that we always need to work through. Of course, there's more. You could take time management, for example, and slice that up in 100 different ways, right? Depending on your job or career or demands and everything else, right? And to say everyone is different, that is obviously an understatement. But I have found that these are 8 areas of our life as adults with ADHD that are kind of those recurring themes, especially when we have that kind of busy job, demanding career. There's just more and more asks of our time and what have you. So, but I will say that, when I work with people individually, we do take that kind of problem-solving approach. We work together to make work and life a little more manageable. So, and we tackle any subset of these 8 areas once we kind of dig in and we kind of talk things through. So, let's not waste any more time, pun intended, maybe not. And let's kind of discuss these now, these kind of 8 kind of parts of our life that come up over and over again that many of us need to work through. And one of the big ones, I think, whether you are working in an organization, or you are actually running your own business as an adult with ADHD, is that overcommitment. And saying yes to too many things can not only rob our energy, but it makes time management so much more difficult. And that actually can lead to feeling burned out. And without enough downtime, you can feel overwhelmed. That leads to that stress, and it really kind of reduces your overall enjoyment of not only work, but life in general and your fulfillment. And you come home, you're exhausted because you're overcommitted. But you also just spread yourself too thin, and you don't have enough time, energy, and just good old-fashioned brain power to actually do meaningful work. The book, Slow Productivity, which I confess I have not read yet, it is on my radar, on my list. But the general theme of slow productivity is doing less things, quote unquote, and doing them better and putting more energy behind less things. And I know we've had these conversations. Some of us overcommit because we have a hard time saying no because of a couple reasons, but one of them is we think someone may be displeased with us. We get that. Others commit because they think maybe it was a good idea at the time, but then we find out later that we actually didn't have the time. And actually what they committed to wasn't exactly what was originally presented to them. And I don't know if that resonates with you, but it does come up over and over again. So those of us with adult ADHD, busy adults, demanding careers, we need to get better at saying no. And I always kind of advise people that you need to kind of weigh out those consequences of saying no, especially in the workplace. And maybe with your spouse, like if your spouse asks you to go shopping or take the trash out or go pick up the kids, those are probably things that you're going to probably just have to say yes to, right, guys? Okay. But I mean, if your boss or client asks you to do something, you need to carefully consider that. Don't take what I say and say, oh, Dave said to say no, and then all of a sudden you're not collecting a paycheck anymore. Okay, so don't misunderstand me. But to the extent that you can say no, you can navigate those waters. And speaking of waters, you got to test those waters carefully. But it is something we need to really kind of reinforce. I also understand, working with many of you, that your job is just too big for one person. That comes up over and over again. And by default, you're overcommitted. And that's just a whole, another discussion that we need to have here about when your job is actually just too big to begin with. So, but I think there's some wiggle room there. But again, another discussion. Next, neglecting yourself. The common term is self-care. So neglecting self-care. A lot of us with ADHD, we get wrapped up in things. We're freaked out because we're missing deadlines or we're up against the wall, and we skip meals. We skimp on sleep. Maybe we don't work out or exercise. And that can, over time, it's going to harm our physical health, our mental health. And I think prioritizing some type of self-care is essential for that kind of sustained happiness when you are an adult with ADHD. Even if you're building in a simple walk during the day, I really believe it can do wonders. And I also tell people, this is one of my favorite things to say, but really nobody's going to miss you for 30 minutes. They don't know who you are. I mean, come on. You could be in the bathroom. You could be eating lunch. Okay, they don't know who you are, right? So nobody's going to miss you for 30 minutes. If you're skipping meals, get better at shopping and doing some advanced prep, maybe making some things on Sunday night to get you through a good chunk of the week. If you feel you have no time to work out, I really think there's always a way to squeeze in 10 or 20 minutes of activity. Me personally, I've had some issues with my shoulder, and I've got those kind of physical therapy bands that you can buy for $10 on Amazon. But I know when I have really busy days here, I just might go grab that and do some of those kind of simple exercises for 5 minutes. It just kind of increases your energy. But I think self-care in a nutshell is also kind of what you make of it. It's also avoiding friends that ask you to go out to dinner. That's another form of neglecting self-care. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But honestly, I'm getting tired of the term self-care. I'm gonna bring up a thesaurus in a few minutes. But you can be selfish at times and still thrive as an adult with ADHD, and I don't think selfish in this case is necessarily a negative. All right, next, that multitasking, that task switching. I mean, multitasking, what you think is multitasking, okay, is going to reduce your focus. It's going to increase your stress. You're jumping between tasks and projects, and you're going to feel less accomplished over time. It's going to lead to frustration. It's going to lead to anxiety. It's going to lead to, quite frankly, a lack of productivity. Whatever you think about trying to do 5 things at once, it just doesn't work. And no amount of you telling me that you're good at multitasking is going to convince me. So, but switching back and forth, it robs you of focus, but it makes it so much more difficult to get anything accomplished. And doing 5 things at once will never get you to the finish line on anything. However, trying to focus on one thing and get it accomplished is actually more fulfilling if we can start to slowly kind of change our habits. I know a ton of you out there, you get to your desk in the morning at work and you try to do 5 things at once. And I know, because I've talked to a ton of you, that what happens is nothing. You get nothing done. When you switch those tasks back and forth, you lose your train of thought. And when we're talking about working memory, that is already in the toilet for a lot of us, we just can't add to that dilemma. And if you're going back and forth, you're lighting your working memory on fire. Okay, that's just the way it is. Sticking with one task, no matter how long it takes, I think will actually get something done faster, more efficiently. You'll make less mistakes. You'll be more fulfilled, and you'll be proud of the work that you've done because you actually had time to actually get in the zone and focus on something. I don't care if it was 15 minutes or 3 hours. Next, holy moly, boundaries, right? And there's got to be another word for boundaries too. But again, we're going to pull out the dictionary of the thesaurus and maybe kind of rewrite this thing. But you know what I'm saying. Not setting those clear boundaries, especially between the work and the personal life, that results in just increased stress. That's like answering your boss's email at 9:00 at night. That's just unacceptable. And that's, you know what? That's not all your fault either. Your boss shouldn't be sending you an email at 9:00 at night. There's ways to change that habit on their part. But you train people how to treat you if you respond at 9:00 at night. So you need boundaries in the workplace, especially in the workplace. And I work with people all the time that just let people invade their space all day long, and you'll never get anything done. And you'll either be stressed out or you'll work all night or both if you have constant interruptions. Not only do you not get anything done, but then you go back to that kind of working memory thing where it just takes forever to actually get started again. And that's just another challenge that those of us need to work through. One simple boundary that I think we all can work towards is just letting others know when we're working and when we don't want to be bothered. And you don't have to be rude about it. You can be tactful. You can be diplomatic. I've seen that kind of meme on social media where the guy's sitting in the cube and there's like a sign on his back. It said, "Don't bother me because I'll never stop talking," right? Maybe we all need that sign on our back. But again, if you don't set those boundaries, let people know when you're working, you'll just be bringing your work home every night. And then you'll start to get resentful because you've had to neglect other things like family time and everything else. So the next thing that I think really kind of gets in our way of living that fulfilled life is that perfectionism. And I think striving for perfectionism in some areas does create that constant dissatisfaction and that negative thinking. And I think sometimes we have to accept that maybe good enough is maybe sufficient at that period of time to kind of reduce your stress. And, I'm going to plead guilty on this one on a number of things. So don't think I'm perfect Dave over here, because God knows I'm not. One thing around the house, raking leaves here in New England. I've tried to get every leaf on the lawn, get it off the lawn. If you're trying to do things like that, you'll just go insane, and I'm totally guilty of that. There are some times where I've been like out there for hours raking leaves and bagging them, and a gust of wind comes, and it looks like I did absolutely nothing, right? I've had to get more comfortable with even just realizing that I'm going to have to come back. So, kicking off new projects in my business over the years, many times I had to have everything buttoned up, everything just right before I even decided to pull the trigger on it. And I really think if I look back, this type of habit just held many projects back from me. Now, let's just get real here for a second. If you're an accountant, you're a bookkeeper, things need to be perfect. Maybe even a lawyer, an attorney, right? Things need to be perfect, but you need to set up the systems to allow you to be able to have that time and that working environment if your job or your career requires you to be perfect. So let's just kind of distinguish that. But I think in general, not everything needs to be perfect in unless you're that accountant or that numbers guy. It's going to stress us out, and it actually does hold progress back to some extent. So you need to distinguish what needs to be perfect and what you can just kind of get done and be comfortable with that. So, all right, next. One of the things that I think we see a lot of, especially nowadays with social media, is kind of comparing ourselves to others. And that's just that external pressure that I just don't think is healthy at all. I think constantly measuring your success against other people, that does kind of bring up a little bit of insecurity. And it can actually reduce your sense of accomplishment and put you in a kind of negative mood. Come on, if you have a demanding career, a family, you have other types of commitments in your life, it doesn't make sense to compare your success with that of this kind of 23-year-old single person who has no commitments and all the time in the world to build their business. They're in a different place. So, and quite frankly, they probably have all the time in the world to focus on that. I will plead guilty again that, when I was running a restaurant, and this before kids, I had a lot more energy. I had more flexibility. That's just life. And I think many of us can relate to that. All of us have different circumstances, and we really kind of need to pull ourselves back from comparing ourselves to others. That perfect example is that, quote unquote, self-help guru on telling everybody on social media that they wake up at 3:30 a.m. I meditate, I get in an ice bath, I journal, I work for 8 hours straight, then I go to CrossFit, and then I read 10 books a day, and then I forage through the forest and get my dinner, and blah blah blah. Yeah, okay, yeah, whatever you say. I think you're full of shit. First of all, Okay, so let's make sure that we don't fall into that trap of comparing ourselves to others, even if they are full of shit. So, next, I find this a lot working individually with some of you, is that we kind of neglect some of our relationships. We focus too much on work, productivity. It gets us stressed out. And then we start to neglect maybe those relationships like friends. And I think it's perfectly healthy from time to time for you to decline an invitation out to dinner. Maybe you're just exhausted. You just need some time alone. But I think if we're avoiding people over and over again, I think you're avoiding that deep connection that I think many of us need to stay healthy. And I got to tell you, when it comes to burnout, one part of recovering from burnout for many people is reconnecting with friends. That, it's very easy for us to just go home and pull the covers over our head. And some days we just have to do that, and get up and try again. But I think going out to dinner, having a beer, whatever, having a laugh helps us hit the reset button and quite frankly, just get out of our own head, all right? And I think that's important. So the last one, which maybe not everybody has thought of, but it does come up, is just not living in the present. And I'm going to have to tell you, I really have to confess that this is a work in progress for me too. Always worrying about the future or regretting past decisions, I think prevents us from enjoying the present moment. I know that is difficult in the moment. It really is. Again, it's something that I continue to work on myself. But I think many of us are in situations where there is a lot of uncertainty in our lives. Maybe it's with our own habits, our career. Maybe we are raising children that require some extra attention. Maybe you're a caretaker to an aging parent, and so on and so on. And we just have to bust through wall after wall to get through each and every day. And that can be difficult for many people. And I think there's a lot of uncertainty, and it's difficult to live in the present because of that. So this is a tough one to tackle. I don't have any earth-shattering advice for you, and that's why I in putting this together, I thought that I really should find somebody with some expertise to come on the podcast soon to discuss this, because I know it just comes up over and over again. I know many of us are thinking that way, that we're having a difficult time living in the present. So, and I really believe that it's something those of us with ADHD who are living busy lives continue to struggle with. So, all right, folks, I hope that helps. I think a lot of these will resonate with you. If you are in a position where you would like somebody side by side with you to do some problem solving and maybe figure some things out, smooth your week out, work on some of these challenges together, I would love the opportunity to meet you. Just hit overcomingdistractions.com. Right on the homepage, there's a button. You can book a 15-minute Zoom chat with me. Give or take a few minutes. I'm not going to just hang up with you in 15 minutes. And let's chat and see if we are a good fit. I would love the opportunity to work with you to solve some problems and make things maybe a little less stressful. All right, overcomingdistractions.com. We are going to catch you next time.